When I was a kid, I used to read books like this all the time. Actually, I still read books like this. In this novel by Arthur C. Clarke, the world has created colonies in other parts of the solar system, including the moon Titan surrounding Saturn. The time of troubles is over. War and poverty are dead. Keywords here are war and poverty are dead. Today I want to discuss a theme. Science fiction and fantasy especially are genres that really reflect the world we live in. When I was a kid and I loved reading Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury and Arthur C. Clarke, writers who worked in the 50s, 60s, reading their books filled me with a kind of excitement about the future, right? Of course there were problems and issues, but primarily they were new problems. I think a lot of these boomer writers of the 50s and 60s were writing with this idea that, okay, our problems of today are going to be gone in a number of years. It's inevitable. We're not going to have these unjust systems. Of course, they don't really name capitalism as being the problem. It's just war and poverty are gone. They have been solved by collective, Look at Star Trek. I mean, Star Trek is a perfect example of this. It's basically like a communist utopia. Now they are sending peaceful missions out into the universe just to explore. A lot of science fiction in that time was like this. While they may be pessimistic about certain things, artificial intelligence might be a problem in the future, our current problems will be solved by then. They must be. They have to be. To me, this is such a boomer mindset, and I don't mean that in a bad way. This mindset really reflects the kind of eternal prosperity and eternal progress. I guess you could call that a modernist viewpoint, the sense that progress is inevitable, it's going to come. That's kind of why I still like to read books like these today, because you don't find a lot of fiction, a lot of science fiction with that kind of thinking today. And I guess we're going to go back eternally to Frederick Jameson's It's Easier to Imagine an End to the World than an end to capitalism. Which brings us to the genre of dystopian fiction. I'm talking about huge mass appeal of the dystopian genre in like the 2010s. You got Maze Runner, you got Hunger Games, you got the Spider Wars, I don't know. Dystopian fiction as a young adult genre is so weird to me. Like when you actually look at it objectively, like, okay, all these young preteens and teenagers and kids are becoming obsessed with this genre that is all about a future in which everything is dog shit. There is absolutely no hope. It's this fundamental sense that, yeah, the world is slipping away. There's not going to be a solution. These science fiction books of the past, while not always proposing a way to get to this utopian ideal, there is a sense that, okay, progress will come. Today, that sense of progress, where is it? And I don't blame people for not having that optimistic view. There's a reason you don't see books like this written anymore. I mean, it's corny as hell. 2,276. Will there be in America? Probably not. Which brings me to my next point. A bit of a standing up on a soapbox for a second, but hear me out. I think that writers, fantasy, speculative fiction writers, science fiction writers, that it is possibly in the world's benefit to speculate about worlds that aren't shit. Okay? I truly believe that to get to a stage beyond capitalism, we have to imagine that. It can be in so many different ways. That's the freedom of the genre. We can speculate about how we will get to these points. I don't think you can force this type of optimism, and I don't think that we need to be needlessly sappy. Just speculating about how would we get to this stage is important, which basically the science fiction writer Kim Stanley Robinson discusses. There's a wonderful Jacobin article, or interview with Kim Stanley Robinson, where he discusses his new book, The Ministry for the Future, in which he looks at every step. If every country came together and actually implemented the Paris Climate Accords. It's an interesting idea, and it's interesting to see a writer imagine these things. Trying to picture these things is important. We can only have so much to spare. There's only so much we can do with this, The dystopian genre there's nothing inherently detrimental. I just think it's reflective of the situation of late capitalism, stagnation, and decline in people's standard of living. And it's important to recognize how bad it is and to reflect that in our fiction, in our media. I think it's also important to look towards the possibilities of the future. And that's why I love reading stuff like this. And anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope you all are enjoying life. Bye-bye.